Some of you may have seen me advertise this masterclass in September, but September was a really hectic month for me because I was like in between two countries. I was moving from London back to the US because I finished my master's degree. And to be quite honest with you, I was super burnt out and I had to postpone the masterclass till today. And I'm in a much better headspace to be giving this masterclass today. I gave this masterclass back in May, and it is one of my most popular masterclasses. I think the first time I ran it, I had 200 signups, and again, another 200 signups this time. And I think there's a reason for that. I think this is a really powerful masterclass, and I still have people messaging me to this day saying they were impacted from this masterclass last time. And honestly, this is a masterclass I anticipate running multiple times per year because I think it's just so powerful. And you can always attend multiple times, and it's just going to be better each time you hear it. And it also helps to reinforce these ideas. But also, as I live and grow and experience life, I have more to share and add to this concept. And so I also think this class today is going to be even richer than the first time I ran it. So today we're going to talk about how to embrace abundance, how to cultivate an Allah-centered money mindset. I want to teach this masterclass because, to be really frank with you, I started my business last June in 2021. And, you know, a lot of the times I'll have people inquiring about my services and like, how much does this cost? How much does your program cost? And the one thing that was like a common denominator with everybody is like, oh, your program is great, I just can't afford it, or I don't have money, or maybe next time, or whatever, which is fine. But it was just so defeatist and so negative compared to what I was hearing in a different space. So I'm part of the coaching world, and I take business trainings, and I'm part of, a group of other entrepreneurs, and their mindset is very much like, they say things like, trust that the money will come, just surrender, just let go. And they're using very secular words, to be honest with you, that are not tied to anything Islamic or spiritual. Like, it's very much that, like, what is it that? It's very much like that type of new spiritualism that you see these days, right? That a lot of people, like, it's like they just chuck out God and they just talk about, like, frankly, concepts that we believe in Islamically, but they're just removing God, right, from it and making it very like spiritual or whatever. That's a whole different topic in and of itself. But essentially, like, I was hearing that in the coaching space, right? Like, trust that the money will come, let go, like, surrender, like, things are going to work out. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I'm hearing that. And I'm like, frankly, those people don't really have like a religious basis to be basing those statements off of. They're just kind of pulling things from thin air, if I'm going to be quite frank with you. And I was reflecting, and I'm like, what they have, frankly, is where we should be at as an ummah, as a community. Because I'm like, we have the Sunnah, we have the Quran, we have the words of the Prophet ﷺ, we have the words of Allah himself. So I was like, there's a disconnect. We need to fix this. We need to talk about like having a scarcity and an abundance mindset. And we need to get to where they are with their beliefs, to be quite honest with you. And we have a stronger case for having those beliefs because we have something to back it up. Whereas, they are essentially practicing tawakkul and whatnot, just not claiming God with that, right? So I was like, there's a disconnect. We need to talk about this. And so that's why we are doing this masterclass today. So the vibe of my masterclasses is very interactive. I like people to participate. I actually need like visual feedback from people. Otherwise, I'm like, oh, am I talking to crickets or a wall, which is not the vibe. So I would definitely love you guys to participate and definitely react while you listen. If something like hits a nerve with you, or if you have a question, just like drop them in the chat and I will read them throughout the masterclass. And again, like I mentioned earlier, this is one of those masterclasses I need you to just feel and be present. And I really need you to check out your notebook. Like, this is not notebook vibes. This is be present, reflect, And I will send you the slides after, inshallah, as well as the replay. So like, you don't have to like try and scribble the hadiths or the ayats that I'm going to share with you. Like, you're going to be fine, inshallah. So welcome. For some of you, this might be your first masterclass with me. And I'm so excited that you're here. So let's get started with the interactive vibes. Let me ask you this question. How many of you would say you struggle with having a scarcity mindset right now? And we're going to define exactly what a scarcity mindset means, but based on your understanding of this question, how many of you would say you struggle with having a scarcity mindset at the moment? Go ahead and put it in the chat. Are there waiting room participants? Let me see. I might have to look. Okay, Afreen says, I do. It's hard to look at money I've wasted and see it as gone for good. Yes, thank you for sharing. Definitely a common struggle. Sorry, I'm just trying to see if there are folks in the waiting room or what. Also, I think there's someone who's not muted. If you could please mute yourself. It's extremely distracting for me to hear like white noise. So please go ahead and mute yourself. Otherwise, I will have to remove you if you're not muted. Okay. Is anyone else share in the chat, inshallah? Okay, no one wants to share. It's all good. We can move forward. Okay, Senna says, sometimes it feels like I don't have enough to do what I want. Yes, that is a very common feeling. Definitely been there. Felt that many times. Okay, we're going to keep going for the sake of time because I have a lot to cover. But if you guys want to keep going, Seda says, I overthink before spending and then go spend a lot on rubbish. Yes, this is a really common one too. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes. Okay. I'm so excited to have this conversation then, because I think it's going to be super relevant for you guys. Okay. So let's actually define what a scarcity mindset is. So if you guys have heard of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, his book became really popular, I want to say in the mid 2000s. And I think it like made him a millionaire, but basically it's a really good book. If you haven't read it, I would actually really encourage you to read it. But he defines scarcity mindset as it refers to people seeing life as a finite pie, so that if one person takes a big piece, that leaves less for everyone else. So that's like a very like macro level definition. But if you want to think micro in terms of your own life, scarcity is when you fall into lack into your own life, meaning you believe that your money resources are finite, and if you spend money, it won't come back. So this was already echoed in the chats. And so this is basically the definition of having a scarcity mindset. Your money resources are limited. If you spend the money, it's gone, it's never coming back. So you view money as this like finite resource that you basically need to constantly hold on to, right? You believe there isn't enough money, you are in lack. So what's the opposite of that? What's what we are trying to learn today? So an abundance mindset, again, also by Stephen Covey, his definition is an abundance mindset refers to the paradigm that there is plenty out there for everybody, that you like having an amount of money does not decrease from somebody else's wealth or their risk or their resources, that there is plenty out there for everybody. Now, in terms of micro, in your life, if you have an abundance mindset, you believe that money can constantly come into your life. There's no constraints to it. There's always more, and there's no limitations. And so you believe there's plenty to go around, and you believe there's no limits to how you can receive money or how much. Like you literally believe money can fall out of the sky. And I know we say that like, oh, money doesn't grow on trees. And of course it doesn't, but you also believe like money can come from anywhere. You can find money on the ground. You can get a tax return from the government. You can, one of your family members sends you a check unexpectedly. Like You get a bonus at work that you weren't expecting. Like, you believe there is an avenue for money to come at you from every single direction. I want to touch on this real quick. Scarcity mindset is not related to how much money you have. You can still have a scarcity mindset if you make 6 figures. So people are like, oh, I have a scarcity mindset because maybe I don't make too much, I don't have enough money. And if I had more money, I would not have a scarcity mindset. And I'm like, I don't actually think that's true, because scarcity mindset is more of a behavioral mindset thing than an actual money thing. I actually had a client who made 6 figures, almost $200,000 a year, and she really struggled with scarcity mindset. Like, in our private coaching, we had to sit and walk her through investing money in marriage counseling because she was struggling with her marriage. And then we also talked her through a deep desire that she had for herself, which was buying a luxury vehicle. She wanted to buy a Mercedes as a validation for all the hard work that she's put in to get to where she is. She's a dentist, mashallah. But she was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. Like, even though, mind you, she has the money, right? So we really had to work on her scarcity mindset blocks, right? So even if you make 6 figures, even if you make 7 figures, it really is a mindset game, and it's not necessarily a numbers or money game. And this is why I want to have this conversation, because this conversation is literally applicable to everybody. So let's talk about like the root causes of scarcity mindset. Like, why do we cultivate a scarcity mindset? Where does it come from? So obviously the first one is, you experience scarcity yourself at some point in your life, whether you experienced it in childhood, growing up, your family didn't have a lot. You constantly heard your parents use phrases like it's too much, or we can't afford it. You saw your parents stressed or fighting about money. Maybe in your adult life, you went through a period of scarcity yourself. You didn't have enough to pay your bills. Maybe you experienced poverty. And so if you've experienced scarcity in your life before, your brain is likely holding on to that mindset because it's what allowed you to survive and kept you safe. Okay. It's basically a defense mechanism. And it's like, it's all you know. And so you hold on to it because it feels familiar and it feels safe, right? But it's also making you miserable at the same time. The other cause can be much more deep and a lot more ingrained subconsciously. So if there's been a history of poverty in your family, even generations back, you likely might have generational trauma that you are carrying. And even if you've actually never experienced scarcity yourself in your life, but your ancestors have, that type of trauma might be ingrained in your subconscious. And generational trauma is often silent, and you may not be aware of it. And I also really want to touch on this, like colonialism, because a lot of our ancestors, mine included, my parents are from Syria. They were colonized by France. A lot of Muslim majority countries were colonized, and families experienced poverty, exploitation, and or slavery. And that trauma, even though technically those events passed, that trauma still passes on from those generations to us. And there's actually even been studies showing that like we carry this trauma in our bodies, which is like insane to me that it can still be passed centuries down. But this is true, right? And it's important you address it, because you might inadvertently and unintentionally pass on your scarcity mindset to your own children and their children, and basically your descendants down the line. So it's really, really important that we become aware of some of these issues that are affecting us, maybe silently. And I just want to say, hold on. Oh. Yeah, I want to say this real quick. It's not your fault if you have a scarcity mindset. Obviously, if you've experienced scarcity yourself or even generational trauma, those things are outside of your control, right? But it is your responsibility to address it and work on it. Scarcity mindset keeps you small, and it's actually likely holding you back from doing amazing things in your life. Where would you be if you didn't have scarcity? Where would you be if you embraced abundance? Where would you be? What would you build? What would you create? So having a scarcity mindset is actually really having tangible results in your life that are likely keeping you upset and unhappy and miserable. And so we're going to fix that, right? So how does scarcity mindset manifest? 3 main ways is what I have seen in my personal experience. So it manifests in your words and beliefs, how you make purchases, and when it comes to donating. So words and beliefs are the words that you not only just say on your tongue, but the beliefs that are embedded in your subconscious. Making purchases. So whenever you want to purchase something, whether it's large or small, you might get anxiety, you might hold yourself back. And this is especially prevalent with non-tangible things like investing in yourself, basically investing in a program, investing in a course, investing in your education, investing in therapy, investing in counseling. These are things that don't have a very tangible feel to them. And so because it's not like going and buying, shoes or a bag of chips or something, right? You just, because you can't see it and you can't feel it and you can't touch it, your brain doesn't register that you've made a purchase that you can see the return on investment on right away. And so when you see something like that, you just kind of slip into this mindset of, oh, I can't afford. You literally say the words, I can't afford, especially when it comes to investing in yourself. And it might also be with tangible things as well. I'm not saying it's also with non-tangible things only, but I see it in obviously my field. I see it a lot with the intangible things, but it can also manifest. I'm thinking of someone in a family friend in our life who had money. He was making 6 figures and he had a really beaten, rundown car. It was 20 years old. His wife was driving it and it would always break down in the middle of the street, which is really unsafe. And then she'd his wife didn't speak English very well. So she would get flustered and she wouldn't know what to do. And then she'd have to call her husband. He'd have to leave his work. And he just refused to get a new car, even though he could afford to. And it's come on, So it can manifest in tangible purchases as well. But I see it a lot, especially with the non-tangible. And then the other area is donating. And this might hit a nerve for some people, but this is also something that I have seen that, to be honest, really frustrates me, is you'll hear people say things like, oh, I can't donate right now, or I'll donate when I have money, inshallah. Or the other spectrum of this is they do have money and then they don't pay their zakat, which really, really bothers me, of course, which is also haram. But this is the 3 ways that scarcity mindset manifests, right? Your words and beliefs, the words on your tongue, and the beliefs in your subconscious. How you make purchases, whether they're tangible or intangible, big or small, doesn't matter. You tend to use the words, I can't afford. And then donating. You kind of say things like, oh, I can't. You see an opportunity, you shy away. I'll donate when I have more money, or you have money and you just keep making excuses, right? So let me just talk about my story real quick because I can relate to this. So again, my family, we came to the US from Syria. I was around 8 years old. And I basically had grown up in the prior years in Syria. And before that, I grew up in Japan because my dad was doing his PhD in Japan. And alhamdulillah, we always had food on the table, our basic needs were always met, but money was always tight, always tight. There were always fights and stress about money. I heard the phrase, we can't afford, so many times, you guys. I can't even count how many times I heard that. If I had a penny for every time I heard the phrase, we can't afford, I'd probably be a millionaire by now. It was bad. And there were at some points during my childhood growing up when we were close to poverty in the area we lived in. We lived in Southern California. If you know anything about Southern California, it is a very high cost of living area. People tend to come here because, the nice weather, that we basically don't have winter. It's 2 p.m. almost in the middle of November and it is bright and sunny out. And it's I don't even know what degrees is it. 67 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that translates to Celsius, but anyway, all that is to say, a lot of people come here because of the nice weather, and so the cost of living is super high. And so according to the area around us, the cost of living, we were pretty close to poverty at some points, and we were definitely below poverty when my dad was laid off from work. So naturally, I adopted a scarcity mindset because it's all I've ever known. I didn't take risks with money. I was really afraid to spend money. And, you know, what really changed for me was improving my understanding of Allah and learning the Sirah, and also implementing some of these things that I'm going to be teaching you today at the end of this class. So I didn't grow up with abundance. I grew up in scarcity. Even my parents, my dad specifically, his family grew up in scarcity too at some point, because he lost his father when he was young, and like they were 7 kids, and it was like, how are they going to provide, you know? So there's also some of that generational trauma as well, right? So that's my story. So I want to go into, right, someone who embraces abundance has a very positive view of money and of Allah. They give with ease, they readily invest in themselves, and they don't use limiting language. Okay, and that is the goal where we want to get you at, inshallah, by the end of this class. Again, not your fault if you have a scarcity mindset, but it is definitely your responsibility to address it and work on it. I do believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends people the resources they need. If Allah made you see this class and you signed up for it and you are listening to it right now, Allah meant for you to be here. Nothing is random and nothing is arbitrary with Allah. You are meant to be here. You are meant to be listening to this, meaning Allah is telling you you have a problem. You need to work on it. And this is a resource to help you fix it, inshallah. And I can tell you right now, maybe you've seen me share some things on Instagram. I am so far from where I used to be when it comes to scarcity mindset. It is so possible for you to work on it and to embrace it, to embrace abundance, and to truly, truly feel like an abundant human being, even if you don't actually make that much money. Okay, so how do we overcome a scarcity mindset? So let me just share a few hadiths and ayat that will help begin your reframing of scarcity and abundance, inshallah. This is one of my favorite hadith. It is on the authority of Abu Dhar. He narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, and this is a hadith Qudsi. So this is a hadith Qudsi, if you're unaware. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking to the Prophet, telling him to say this and this. So this is Allah's words. So he says, Allah says, my servants, if the first of you and the last of you, and the humans of you and the jinn of you were all to stand together in one place and ask of me, and I were to give everyone what he requests, then that would not decrease of my kingdom, except what is decreased of the ocean when a needle is dipped into it. This hadith really, first time I heard it, I was like shook, because it's like, it's so like, even with my limited human brain, I was having a really, really hard time envisioning. He's saying, if all of you were to stand together in one place, every single human and jinn that has ever existed since the dawn of time were to stand in one place, and we asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what we want, everything, imagine your heart's desire, except times however many humans have ever lived on earth, and he were to give everyone what they wanted, that would not decrease of his kingdom, except what is decreased of the ocean when a needle is dipped into it. Imagine a needle being dipped into the ocean. What does that decrease from the ocean? Of course not, right? So just imagine like the volume, right? It's so hard for me to wrap my head around. And I'm like, wow, like what that means is there is plenty out there. Allah is rich. He is al-Ghani. He is self-sufficient. He doesn't need us, we need him. And so, but his kingdom is vast, right? What the resources that he can give you is vast, it's unlimited. He can give you, and every single human engine that has ever existed on this planet, every single thing they want, and that would not decrease of his kingdom. This is like in order to combat like resources are finite. Resources are not finite. And this is like proof of that, right? This hadith is proof that resources in this world are not finite because we have Allah. So that's the first hadith. The other hadith was narrated on the authority of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. The Prophet ﷺ said, if you were to rely upon Allah with a reliance that is due to him, he would provide for you just as he provides for the birds. They go out in the morning with empty stomachs and return full. So the birds, they literally like full tawakkul. Literally, they get up in the morning, they have no food, and they just go, they fly out of their nests, and they're just literally like hoping Allah will catch them and will take care of them and will feed them. And he does, right? They go out in the morning with empty stomachs and return full. And this is the Prophet ﷺ saying, if you were to rely upon Allah with the reliance that is due upon him, which Allah always tells us, right? Always rely on him, trust him. Tawakkul is a huge part of our faith, right? And he tells you, if you were to really rely upon him, he would provide for you the way he provides for the birds. So if the birds leave their nests, empty stomachs, and come back home full, then you are the same way. You will go out and seek your sustenance, and Allah will, you'll return home full and content, inshallah. Okay, and then this ayah is one of my favorites. I just love how, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most wise. And I love how these two ayat are actually situated in the chapter in the Quran on divorce, Surah Al-Talaq. Because how poignant, is that how you pronounce that word? Poignant? I don't know. Poignant. How do you pronounce that? Anyway, whatever. It's just beautiful because divorce is essentially the breaking up of a home, right? And especially for women, it's a very stressful time, especially if you're relying on your husband to be your main provider. And how beautiful is it that two ayat, because this is ayahs 2 to 3, 2 ayat into this verse, Allah tells us that he will take care of us financially, right? So the ayat are أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ومن يتق الله يجعل له مخرجا ويرزقه من حيث لا يحتسب ومن يتوكل على الله فهو حسبه. Okay. صدق الله العظيم, which translates to, and whoever is mindful of Allah, he will make a way out for them and provide for them from sources they could never imagine. And whoever puts their trust in Allah, then he alone is sufficient for them. How beautiful that these ayat fall in Surah Talaq, the chapter on divorce, to literally reassure those who are getting divorced, especially women. The tafsir says this is really to comfort women also, especially, that Allah will take care of you. If you have to get divorced, you have to get divorced. You got to do what you got to do. But Allah will make a way out for you. He will provide for you from sources you could never imagine. And whoever puts their trust in Allah, then he alone is sufficient for them. I just have to tell you guys, whenever I feel bouts of scarcity, because it's and this is something we'll cover later, is it's a work in progress, obviously, but there are moments when you're going to fall into lack as much as you work on it. And anytime I find myself falling into lack, I just I memorize these ayat and I just keep repeating them over and over again. And then subhanallah, this feeling of peace just overcomes me. My chest expands. And I just feel really, really good. And I can tell you, and we're gonna, again, talk about a little bit more of my story later. Wallahi, I have seen this firsthand. Provide for them from sources they could never imagine. I don't even know where my desk has come from sometimes. I'm just how? I never expected this. I'll give you a very brief example. If you've seen me promoting my Confident Investor program on Instagram, yesterday, somebody paid in full for the program, and I have never seen them. They've never interacted with my posts, no messages, no, because as content creators, we know, I tend to know which people message me, which people interact with my content, which people like my stuff, which people comment. I'm aware, right? I know everything. And this is someone I've never heard of. She's never interacted with anything. And then like at 8 in the morning, I just get like a random pay in full from her for this program. And I'm like, how could I have predicted that? I could not have predicted that ever. Right? So this is literally sources they could never imagine. Okay. I truly believe, and I say this wallahi from the bottom of my heart, there are no restrictions to the money you can receive from Allah. No restrictions on how much or where or when. It's all mindset. If you believe Allah will provide for you and that there are no restrictions on how, where, or when, then that is exactly what will happen. And that is exactly what will happen in your life. And I really, really believe that. So how do you embrace abundance then? So like we went through the ayat, we went through the hadith. So you're like, okay, cool. I understand that. So what are the practical things, right? So number one, you have to change your beliefs, right? You have to believe Allah's got your back and that he will provide for you. This is key. This is number one. If you don't believe this, then even if you like change your words or you actually start trying to act more abundant, if you don't believe, change your beliefs, you will never embrace abundance. Like your beliefs shape your reality. So you have to believe Allah's got your back. Number two, you want to change your words. You need to start letting go of defeatist and scarcity phrases like I can't afford. I'm very, very particular about this one too. I really hate this phrase. If you've been following me on Instagram, you know I hate this phrase. I never say these words anymore. I never say I can't afford. And we're going to talk about what to use instead. But like, this is one of the most defeating phrases you can ever say. And we'll go into why a little bit later. And then number three is you have to start doing it, right? You have to prove to yourself and to Allah that you're embracing an abundance mindset. And that will help reinforce your mindset as you do it more. Okay, so let's go through these one by one. So changing your beliefs. Our beliefs are powerful and truly shape our reality. Truly shape our reality. Like it's mind-boggling how your beliefs shape your reality. Whatever you believe to be true is. Whatever you believe to be true is. If you believe the world is scarce, then it is, because that's your belief. If you believe Allah won't give you, then he won't. There's another hadith Qudsi that I wanted to add here, narrated by Abu Huraira, may Allah be pleased with him, radiallahu anhu, who said that the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah the Almighty said, I am as my servant thinks I am with him when he makes mention of me. If he makes mention of me to himself, I make mention of him to myself. And if he makes mention of me in an assembly, I make mention of him in an assembly better than it. I am as my servant thinks I am. Whatever you believe about to be true about Allah is. And how do we form our basis for our beliefs about Allah? We go off of what he told us, right? We go off of his names, his beautiful, beautiful names. And Allah tells us that he is those things, right? He tells us he is the provider, Al-Wahhab, who provides gifts, Al-Wadud, the most loving, Al-Ghani, the self-sufficient. He tells us all of these things, right? So you just have to believe Allah. Like it's one thing to believe in Allah, to believe that he exists. And it's another thing to believe Allah. When he tells you he's going to take care of you, when he tells you he's this and this, do you believe that? They're very, very different things. You can believe Allah exists, but you may not actually believe Allah. And that's something to really, really think about and ponder, because when I realized they were two different things, I was like, oh, actually, I need to work on believing Allah a little bit more, right? Which is also part of believing in him. So it all intertwines, right? Abundance is deeply entwined with tawakkul, trusting Allah. Like you have to believe, like deeply, deeply, deeply believe at the core of your being that Allah has your back, that he is merciful and generous, and that he is your provider. Not your job, not your husband, not your business. They're not your providers. He is. And again, would really encourage you to read and understand Allah's 99 names to help you change your beliefs. This is called having yaqeen or conviction. You have to know who Allah is. If you guys are familiar with the Yaqeen Institute, they're called Yaqeen because their whole job is to like explain Islam in a way to help you gain conviction in Allah and in Islam. Would highly recommend reading Jinan Yusuf's Reflecting on the Names of Allah book. Let me see if I can pull it up. Yeah, this is amazing. Sorry guys, cookie preferences. Why? Okay, whatever. Reflecting on the Names of Allah, this is what it looks like. This is the best book I have ever read in my entire life. And I don't say that lightly. Like, this has literally changed my entire relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just like knowing his names. I'm going to talk about this book a little bit more towards the end of this class again, but seriously, do yourself a favor and go out and buy this book after this masterclass ends. And I'm always inspired too, as well, when it comes to changing our beliefs. I'm inspired to think about, you know, the people who came before us. And I think sometimes when we hear the stories of the prophets, you know, sometimes we tend to hear them when we're like kids for the first time, and then you kind of hear them the rest of your life growing up, and like they don't really register because you're just like, oh, like that was a different time, like, or you like maybe sometimes relegate them to stories. And I think sometimes we forget that they were living, breathing human beings, just like the way we were. And they had fears and dreams and hopes the way we did. And sometimes it's been really helpful for me to like place myself in their shoes and be like, oh my God, like if Allah got them, then he got me too. So the two scenarios I always think of when it comes to scarcity and abundance is like when Prophet ﷺ, Prophet Musa radiallahu anhu, when he saw, like, he was with the children of Israel, right? Pharaoh was pursuing them. They got to the sea. He's like, sea's in front of him, Pharaoh's behind him, Pharaoh and his armies, right? And he literally was like screwed. Honestly, anyone would look at that situation and be like, yeah, you guys are dead. You're either drowning or Pharaoh and his army is going to kill you. Like, there's no, it's very black and white, supposedly, right? And subhanAllah, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, when the two groups came face to face, the companions of Moses cried out, we are overtaken for sure. Moses reassured them, absolutely not. My Lord is certainly with me. He will guide me. I mean, like, imagine, just literally imagine yourself, the sea's in front of you, Pharaoh's behind you, like picture it, because visions are powerful. And like to have so much yaqeen and to say like, my Lord is with me. I know it looks like we're about to die, but like Allah's got me. And he did, obviously, you guys know the story, right? The sea split for him. SubhanAllah, like who would have guessed that? Which is also a tangent lesson about odds, right? The odds don't really matter when we have Allah, because it's like Allah created odds. So the concept of odds. So the odds don't matter. Allah can suspend the odds whenever he wants to. The other one that really hits me that I can relate to personally, because I just can really put myself in her shoes, is our mother Hajar, when Prophet Ibrahim radiallahu anhu left her radiallahu anha in the desert with baby Ismail. Like, literally, this story is like, he just takes them to the desert because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him to do, right? Where the Kaaba is today. And he just leaves. He like turns his back and he leaves. And Hajar is like, hold up, like, where are you going? And she's literally like, for whom are you leaving us in this forsaken valley? And then he's unable to answer her or to turn back. And then she calls out after him and she's like, has Allah commanded you to do this? And he said yes. And then she's literally like, okay, then Allah will not cause us to be less. Like, we're good. We don't need you. We're fine. If Allah commanded you to do this, we're going to be okay. Allah's going to take care of us. I'm just trying to imagine like being in her shoes. She literally had a baby who she was nursing, who was like a few months old. who was hungry, who was crying. Her husband, who was her provider, just like leaves them in the middle of nowhere and just ups and leave, which is like crazy to think about. And then he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna go. And she's like, okay, well, what's up? Right? And then as soon as she hears like Allah commanded this, she's like, okay, we'll be fine. And then obviously, the rest of the story, she like, Isra and Miraj between, no, not Isra and Miraj, sorry, the Sa'i. Sorry, you guys, sometimes the Sa'i between Safa and Marwa, and obviously we have the well of Zamzam today, right? But we have the well of Zamzam because of her belief. And obviously she took the means as well. You have to take the means, but it was her belief that started that. If she didn't believe, then she wouldn't have taken the means. Okay. So that's changing your beliefs. So changing your beliefs has to come from tawakkul, has to come from understanding who Allah is and believing what he says about himself. And then also remember like these human beings that lived before us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took care of them, and he shared their stories with us so that we can know that he's there for us in the same way. Okay, so the second one is changing our words. So the words you say in your head and on your tongue affect your subconscious, right? I really want to encourage you to remove the words I can't afford from your personal dictionary. You just have to kind of assume that the words I can't afford do not exist in your dictionary. Incredibly defeatist phrase. You literally just like automatically shut down and stop seeing solutions when you use the words I can't afford. You say I can't afford, it's just like, it's almost like this like black blanket just kind of like comes down in front of you, and you're just like, okay, we're done. That's it. And then your brain relegates that to things that no longer concern you. So you literally are like pushing it out of your life when you say things like I can't afford. I'd also encourage you to avoid using the words it's too much or it's too expensive. Instead, get really curious with Allah, right? So why don't you ask things like, how will Allah bring me the funds? How will Allah bring me the money? What if Allah gave me this? Or, you know what? I don't have the funds right now and I'm not sure where the money will come from, but Allah's got me. Nothing is impossible. Literally nothing's impossible. And we talked about how the odds don't matter when you have Allah. Like what these questions do, or this type of thinking does, is that it opens you and expands you rather than shuts you down. All right. It's like, oh, okay, maybe I don't have the money right now, but what is one way that I can potentially get creative and make it work? Right. Instead of saying, oh, nope, not for me, can't afford, bye. Right? Even though it's something you may actually really, really want. Okay. That's changing your words. Changing your words is super powerful. Be very, very conscious of your words. They do matter. And then the third part is to just actually just do the thing. You do it. You just need to actively and consistently prove to yourself and Allah that you are embracing abundance. If you want to be an abundant person, you need to act like one. It's the consistency. It's the consistency of you taking abundant actions that helps you embrace an abundance mindset. Let me repeat that. It's the consistency of you taking abundant actions that help you embrace an abundance mindset. So you have to do it. Like all of these things work together. It's not enough to just change your beliefs and change your words and then you don't actually do anything about it. Then it's like, okay, well, how is your mind or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala going to, you're not proving anything to anybody. You're just like, yeah, like, it's like you're all talk and no walk, right? So you have to start doing it. So what does this look like? What this looks like is potentially making a deposit on a program you feel pulled to do, but you're not sure where the rest of the money will come from. It could mean committing to therapy and not sure how you'll fund it, but you're like, this is something I need. And I just know that Allah's got me. and everything's going to be fine and Allah will provide for me. It could mean becoming a monthly donor and not knowing if you can actually make the monthly donations each month. I've done that before. I did that recently in Ramadan. I was like, oh crap, like my masjid needs X amount of money. They need, you know how like masajid need, sometimes they'll be like, I have a goal. We need a goal of hitting like 100 donors to donate this much so that we can continue our operations for the year. And subhanAllah, I felt really, really pulled to do that. And at the time, my business was not making very much money. And I was a student and I was like, oh, well, I don't know, but I feel compelled to do it. So I'm just going to do it. That is one way that you prove to yourself that you are embracing an abundance mindset, because you're taking abundant actions. So you ask for a risk, you make dua, obviously you take the means, and you essentially, you leap and you ask Allah to catch you. You leap and you ask Allah to catch you. Super, super important. Okay, I want to address the recession real quick. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it because truly I don't care about the recession. And I'm not saying that from a place of like, oh, she's so entitled. Like, no, it's like I just really believe like our Lord is greater than the recession. Like we say Allahu Akbar 1,000,000 times a day in prayer. Like how many times do we repeat Allahu Akbar in prayer? If we're praying 5 times a day, maybe you're doing some of your nafil prayers, like we are always saying Allahu Akbar, but we just really need to internalize that. You obviously should take the means and take solid steps to prepare for a recession. So obviously that might include setting up an emergency fund, start budgeting if you're not doing that already, creating a backup plan in case you lose your job, etc. Like we're always told to tie our camel and take the means, right? But I'm seeing a lot of people like getting so afraid about the recession that it's taking their power away. Don't let the recession take your power away. Don't let it take your belief in Allah. Allah is greater than a recession. Allah knows that there's a recession, right? He's in control of these things. Don't let it take your power away and put you in scarcity. Don't let it prevent you from investing in the things you know you need to invest in: therapy, counseling, coaching program, getting a certification, going back to school, getting a new car if you really need a new car, like whatever it is you need in your life. Don't let it prevent you from getting the things you need. Because, you know, in life, there are things that are extra. What is known as israf in Arabic, or like extravagant spending, unnecessary spending. But then there are also things that are like, no, actually, like it's necessary, like you need it. And you obviously know what the things that you need are, right? Again, a reminder, Allah is your provider, not your employer, not your husband, not your business. The recession does not determine your risk. Does not determine your risk. Okay, I just wanted to mention that really briefly. I will be doing an Instagram live soon, inshallah, because I did a poll on Instagram stories and it seems like this is the #1 topic that people want to talk about. So I will do a live about like the solid steps you can take to prepare for the recession for sure, inshallah, because that's super important. But also just like don't let the recession take your power away. Okay. So let me tell you a bit of my story. Some of you may have heard all of this or bits and pieces of this before, but essentially the way that I have embraced abundance mindset for me has primarily come through investing in my business, because you have to invest in a business. You do have to spend money to make money. And coming from a background of scarcity and coming from a background where no one was an entrepreneur, you know, I really struggled with this for quite some time, right? But I worked on it. So in December of 2021, my business wasn't doing super well, honestly. It wasn't very profitable. And I had invested more into it, I guess, than I was receiving. And it has basically, it was becoming an expensive hobby, not a business, right? At the end of the day, a business has a bottom line. You need to make a profit. And it was just not working. So I quit my business, I almost quit my business. And I made istikhara to quit my business, which you guys may have heard me talk about before. I literally made istikhara. I was in London at the time. I got on Zoom with my parents. I was like sobbing my eyes out. I was like, it's not working. everybody hates me, no one cares, I'm gonna quit. And then my parents were like, okay, you're crazy, you need to calm down. But I was literally feeling like so low, and I seriously made istikhara to quit. And then a couple of weeks later, I end up meeting one of my former business coaches. And I felt really pulled to join her program, but I was really, really scared because I was like, I have already like spent so much money. I basically had run out of money at this point. And I was like, I just don't know that I can afford to do this. Right. Or I didn't have the funds. Right. So I was like, I don't know what to do. Right. But this is the importance of using words like, or not using words like I can't afford, because I don't think I said the words I can't afford at the time. I can't quite recall, but I was like, okay, I don't have the money. What can I do? What can I do? So I had 1K, her business program, her coaching program costs 3K. I only had 1K at this point, and I was like, what do I do? What do I do? And so I tried to think about getting creative. And then I realized I could actually go ahead and just ask for my brother for to borrow 2K. All right. And he was down with it, alhamdulillah. And I told him I would try to get it back to him as soon as I can. And I took a leap of faith, and I trusted Allah. And I really believe Allah sends you the resources that you need when you need them. Right? If you have a problem in your life, Allah is going to send you the resources, and He will send you the means to pay for those resources if it requires a monetary investment. This is part of like the ayah, inna ma'al usri yusra, right? Hold on. Can somebody mute themselves, please? 1 second. Oh, all right, here we go. Okay. So in 3 months, so I made that investment, and I was like, khalas, like this is my last ditch effort to like save my business. Did the 3K, and in 3 months, I 3 times that investment. So, or a little bit more than 3 times. I made 10K in 3 months, alhamdulillah. And I paid my brother back. And then in April, I invested another $12,000 to work with another coach. But in that instance, I chose a payment plan because I didn't have $12,000 to pay in full. And I'm still on that payment plan today, FYI. This was a year-long investment into a business coach's membership where I get access to all of her programs. And in April, I chose a payment plan, and I only had enough to pay the first payment. And I was like, in case you want to know, it was like around $1,000, 100 per month for the payment plan. I was like, I only have enough for the first payment. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I didn't know how the money was going to come or how I would pay off the monthly payments moving forward. But I have been able to make the monthly payments every single month since then. Alhamdulillah. I leapt and Allah caught me. And I knew I needed to make that particular investment because I thought about not making it. Every decision I make, I always make istikhara for. And I made istikhara. And when I thought about not doing it, there was a voice inside my head that told me, Malak, if you don't do this right now, you are keeping yourself small. And that voice kept repeating. And I was like, well, I don't want to keep my voice. I don't want to keep myself small. Allah didn't put me on this earth to keep me small. So I was like, well, I got to do it. I don't know how the money will come, but it came. January was also the first, after I made that 3K investment, January was the first profitable month in my business. And then April, when I made that other payment plan investment situation, that was my highest month in my business up until that point. Does it make sense? No, it actually does not make sense. It's not logical, right? Not everything has to, when you have a law, not everything has to make sense. Not everything has to be logical. Not everything has to be reasonable, right? And sometimes I invest without having the money first. And this is more recently, and I talked about this as well in September 2022, which was just, 6 weeks ago. In the middle of the year, I switched business coaches, and now I have a different mentor. You may have heard me talking about her. I paid my current business mentor $9,000 in full to work with her through March 2023. And I was incredibly calm and very neutral. So like these investments, right, the first 3K, even like the payment plan situation, like I was freaking out. I was scared. I was nervous. I had some anxiety. Like I felt like I was gonna like vomit. I was shaking, you know, but I still did it anyway. In September, I was incredibly calm and very neutral. No anxiety, no fear, nothing. How does that happen? How do I just pay 9K in full? $9,000. It's a lot of money. It is a lot of money. And how am I so calm and so neutral when in the past I've been extremely nervous and anxious and, you know, to the point of vomiting? It is consistently making abundant decisions. Consistently making one decision after the other, trusting Allah, trusting that He'll catch me, has allowed me to prove to myself, right, that I'm going to be okay. It has also allowed me to prove to myself that I am an abundant person, that I have adopted an abundance mindset, that I know this money will come back and this investment will expand me. Like consistently making these abundant decisions allowed me to regulate my nervous system around money to the point where this is actually the largest transaction I've ever made in my life, personally. And I'm sure it won't be the last. But I felt nothing. No anxiety, no fear. The 9K I was able to pay through, you know, the revenue of my business. So it's not money that I just, you know, have stored, right? Like I'm not rich, you guys. This is it. This is embracing abundance. And I'm like living proof of that. And I'm not saying this to like flex or anything, but I'm just saying like, I am proof that you can go from having grown up in scarcity, paycheck to paycheck, always fights about money, always hearing we can't afford, living in poverty at some points, to paying 9K in full, no anxiety, no fear, nothing, completely calm. I was actually so shook that I literally like messaged my coach and I was like, how am I so calm right now? And she's like, this has become your new normal. And I was like, you're right. Like this has become, making abundant decisions has become my new normal. This is what's normal for me now because I believe in myself and I believe in Allah. I know this money will come back. And this happened because I consistently made abundant decisions and I changed my beliefs and I changed my words. And I had my actions reflect my words and my beliefs. So I talked about this earlier, right? So despite, you know, always working on changing your beliefs or your words, even your actions, you will fall into lack sometimes, right? So what do? Right? It can, so, you know, following this masterclass, you might feel really excited, right? You might be like, you might feel pumped. You're like, yeah, Allah's got me. I'm feeling good. Things are great. But realize that you are human and old habits die hard, like really hard. So sometimes you're going to notice yourself before you make a decision. Even if you've done it before, right? Sometimes, not all the time. And this gets less frequent with time and the more you do this. But especially at the beginning, you know, when you're either about to donate or purchase something, sometimes you might have the words, it's too much, or I can't afford slide into your head, right? So what I want you to do, and again, you won't have to do this as much as you continue practicing this, but I want you to do is like put your hand over your heart, close your eyes, take deep breaths, and you need to like regulate your nervous system basically, right? And you basically need to repeat, Allah's got me, he will return my money to me. Allah's got me, he will return my money to me. And I also want you to recite this following dua. I love this dua. It's like one of my favorites. I say it. We're actually recommended, the Prophet ﷺ recommended that we recite this 7 times in the morning and evening. Inshallah. So make it part of your daily dhikr. But basically it's Hasbi Allahu la ilaha illahu alayhi tawakkaltu wa huwa rabbul arshil azim. So just recite it several times. Whenever you feel like you're sliding into scarcity, you feel your chest tighten, you feel these words popping into your head, literally close your eyes, take deep breaths, say Allah's got me, and then recite this dua. I promise you it helps. I promise you it helps a lot. It calms you a lot. The other thing I want to talk about is having a gratitude list. You've probably heard this a million times, but gratitude is really essential when you want to embrace an abundance mindset. If you're not grateful for what you already have, you're always going to be in lack. You're always going to look at the glass half empty. Oh, like everything sucks. I don't have anything. Allah's never given me anything, etc., etc. But the reality is Allah has hooked you up a lot of times in your life, right? And what you do is if you start writing down a list of all the times that Allah has hooked you up in your life, whether you do it on your phone or in a notebook, whatever, floats your boat, right? It will start helping you see this pattern of Allah taking care of you. And what I mean is like not only the big stuff, so not like, oh, I'm glad like Allah helped me find a great partner, I got into like the university I wanted to get into, I got the job, whatever. I'm not just talking about the big things. I'm talking about micro stuff, like things that Allah provided you that like only he could have known. Or he like things like yesterday, okay? I was driving on the highway and it was like one of those merging lanes, I hate those lanes, they freak me out. But then there was like a van in front of me. And honestly, like there was not enough time for me to like move out, like I was gonna crash into the van, honest to God. And I panicked and I basically switched lanes really quickly. But like I switched lanes and I didn't even see the lane next to me because I was freaking out. I was so focused on what was in front of me. Alhamdulillah, like there was no one there. If there was someone in the lane next to me, I would have definitely gotten into a car accident. 1,000%. But I just realized like, alhamdulillah, there was no one next to me. And so I was like, oh my God. And then I thought about it after like my adrenaline calmed down. I was like, oh my God, Allah literally just saved my life. Like, had there been a car right there, I would have been done for 1,000%. Like, I wouldn't even be doing this masterclass right now. Like, another instance that I'm thinking about is I had a connecting flight once and it was delayed. It was delayed to the point that basically by the time I got out of the flight, I had 15 minutes only to make it to the next flight. And you know how it is with flights, right? Like they close the door 15 to 10 minutes before the flight's supposed to go. So I really only had like 2 minutes. And subhanAllah, my door was like, the flight I got out of was right here. And the door to the connecting flight, like the gate was like 2 feet away. Like, no way. And that's the only way I made it on that connecting flight. Right? And these are small things, they're not like really big things. I mean, they're still a little big, I guess, but another small thing could be like you're having a bad day and you just feel the breeze on your face and it just makes you feel good. I'm talking about really, really micro stuff, the stuff that you like tend to brush off and not think about. You need to start thinking about those things and including them on your gratitude list. And then what happens is you start seeing the miracles in your own life, these tiny little micro miracles. Once you see them and you know that Allah is always taking care of you, he's always watching you, he's always protecting you, then that also helps start building your faith and your trust in Allah. And I would just recommend you constantly add to that list and refer to it when you find yourself sliding back into scarcity. When you have like 500 million little tiny things, that you've put on this list, and you're like, oh, Allah hooked it up here, and he hooked it up here, and he hooked it up here. There was one person I heard who shared the story with me once where like there was a stupid annoying fly in front of her, and like it was just like it kept buzzing in her face, and she was getting so irritated, and she literally made dua like, Ya Allah, please get rid of this fly in front of my face. And then the fly went away immediately and didn't come back. I'm talking that kind of stuff. When you really like go micro, subhanAllah, you start seeing the things in your life, right? You can do this starting today after we end this masterclass. Like, start seeing these beautiful small miracles in your life. I promise you, this makes such a huge difference, and you start appreciating Allah so much more. And obviously, I have to talk about this. I'm a financial coach, right? You have to manage your money to be abundant. I don't think there's a way out of it, to be honest. Like, you can't be in chaos. Like, being abundant doesn't mean you're reckless. So like someone mentioned on here earlier at this program that like, oh, I freak out about my money and then I go and just buy a bunch of stuff that I don't need, right? Potentially. Maybe I'm paraphrasing that. So abundance isn't like recklessness. It's not irresponsibility, right? Like, you can't be in chaos. Again, we talked about taking the means. So like when I made those decisions to invest in my coaches, I 100% knew the state of my finances. Like, yes, I was taking a risk, but it was a calculated risk, a calculated move. It felt safe. It felt both safe and expansive at the same time. And that's because I was like very much tracking my spending, knowing what money was going in, what was going out. As well as the combination of tawakkul, right? So like, it would not be safe for me or smart or abundant for me to go and make like $100,000 investment right now. Like, I'd be like, yeah, let me go make $100,000 investment. Allah's got me. I mean, yes, but like not really. Like, that's not a smart decision, because I know that $100,000 is not something I can swing right now. And it would actually be a very unsafe investment, and it could potentially put me in bankruptcy and in a lot of debt. So like, it's like that very fine balance of like learning how do you find investments that feel safe, that you know, like you can do, Allah's got you, but that also expand you at the same time. And that happens when you manage your money, honestly. When you learn how to budget, you learn your spending habits, you learn how to manage your cash flow, and you start working towards financial goals so you don't shoot yourself in the foot. Okay. A couple other resources that I want to mention. I want to talk about the Quran, obviously. The Quran needs to become your daily buddy. So I would recommend you do something very manageable every day. So maybe read 5 verses of Quran, maybe with translation of tafsir every day. Could take you like 10, 15, 20 minutes in the morning or at night, whatever. If you do it in the morning, then you're bound to have a lot more barakah in your day, just FYI. But regardless, whenever you can squeeze it in, do it consistently, and I promise you it will change your life. You will naturally start embracing the abundance mindset, because you're going to keep coming up on these stories of the prophets, and like how Allah keeps telling us he'll take care of us, and to rely on him, and just constantly seeing that, being exposed to that all the time, will help you start embracing an abundance mindset. The Qalam podcast. Oh my God, you guys. If you are not listening to the Qalam podcast, drop everything you're doing, hop off this masterclass. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, like, you need to start listening to this podcast. It will change your life. I was introduced to the Qalam podcast at a point in my life. I was 22 years old. I was heartbroken over a dude. Of course. I think he was my first love. So obviously it didn't work out. And I felt pain like I never experienced in my life ever. I swear to God, I felt like I was drowning, And when I was introduced to the Qalam podcast, it's like somebody threw me like a floaty or a life jacket, and I just used it to hang on for dear life. So I would recommend the Heartwork series by Ustad Abdurrahman Murphy. I would recommend starting with this episode, the series Purification of the Heart, the episode on Tawakkul, which is episode 16. It's very specific, but it's very important that you listen to this. And the other one is the other episode, or the other series, is For Those Seeking Guidance by Sheikh Mikael Ahmed Smith, who's also a baller sheikh, mashallah. The entire Qalam crew is honestly mashallah, mashallah. But also start with episode 16 for that series as well. Super, super helpful. The Qalam podcast is free. I like to listen to it when I'm driving, when I'm walking, when I'm cleaning, when I'm cooking. And subhanAllah, listening to this for 4 years consistently has also helped change my beliefs and my relationship with Allah. And then, like I said, the Reflecting on the Names of Allah book, this will also change your life. It's awesome because it goes through Allah's beautiful names one by one in basically 5 to 10 pages per name. So it's like a very quick read in the morning or before bed. Currently what I'm doing, if it's useful at all, is like I will read Quran after Fajr for like 10 minutes. Because there's like, again, blessings in reading Quran in the morning. And then as part of my nighttime routine, I will read one of Allah's names in the evening as I'm wrapping up for bed. And it's just a really nice way to go to sleep. So you need to get this book. Put it on your wish list. Ask for it as a gift if your birthday's coming up, or if your anniversary with your husband's coming up, like ask for this book, like ask for it. Embracing abundance is a work in progress, and it's a lifelong journey. You will only get better at it as you do it. It's a muscle. The more you work it, the more toned it will become. And embracing abundance doesn't mean we lack fear. It just means our trust in Allah is stronger than our fear. Because we're humans, right? We're still going to feel afraid, and that's okay. But our trust in Allah has to be stronger than our fear. Like, we are not an ummah of lack. We are not an ummah of scarcity. How does it make sense to be in scarcity when we have Allah? Like, make it make sense to me, you know? We can't be in scarcity. We just can't. Like, we have Allah. We have Allah, you guys. And we are the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ. We are not in lack. There's no need to be in lack. There is no need to be in lack. Okay. How are you guys feeling? Can you put in the chat? How are you feeling? What are your vibes? What are your reflections? I've been talking for like a solid hour, so let me just take a sip of water and see what comes through for you guys. Okay. We got some folks saying hopeful, empowered, clear, feeling good, love the ayahs and reminders you shared. So glad. Yay! I'm so glad, grateful. Good. What's the name of the book? It's called, let me come back here. Reflecting on the Names of Allah by Jinan Yusuf. Mashallah, hopeful, alhamdulillah, very powerful reflections. So glad this is resonating for you guys. Optimistic. Oh my God, I'm so glad, you guys. I'm so glad this is landing for you. Does anybody have any questions? Oh yeah. Oh, I forgot to put the question slide. Do you guys have any questions? Motivated. The balance between recklessness and abundance, that's what I need to master more. Yeah, and that comes from taking consistent actions, but also money management. That has to be the balance between recklessness and abundance, is money management, but also hope in Allah and changing your beliefs, changing your words. It's a fine balance, and it takes time. Does anyone else have any questions or reflections? Comments? I missed the first half. Are we receiving the recording? Yes, ma'am. We're receiving the recording and also receiving the slides, inshallah. Okay, what are the biggest hurdles to embracing abundance you've seen in clients? That's a really good question. I would have to say the biggest hurdle that I've seen is like folks needing to do something in their life and they just are stuck in so much scarcity that they just can't bring themselves to do the thing even though they know they need it. But it can be worked on. So I mentioned that private client earlier. Like we had to work for a bit like on the fact that she needs to get marriage counseling because her marriage was on the rocks. And it was like, if she didn't get marriage counseling, like it was over for her marriage. And it's like, that's not like a luxury. That was something she needed. And she could afford it, but like she just couldn't bring herself to do it. So we really had to like work through that, right? So that's the biggest hurdle is like people need things in their life, whatever it is. It could be counseling, it could be therapy, it could be a car, it could be you name it. I'm just thinking of car because I'm stuck on that story that I shared with you guys. But like it could be needing to get dental work done, getting wisdom tooth removal surgery, like whatever it is, that's the biggest hurdle is like they need things. It's not things that are luxurious, it's things that they need in their life. How to stay consistent? Yeah, there are times when you slip up, and I would really recommend like this, right? I would recommend hand over heart, close your eyes, deep breaths, repeat Allah's got me. He'll return my money to me. And recite this dua constantly. Make this part of your morning and evening dhikr. Hasbi Allahu la ilaha illahu alayhi tawakkaltu wa rabbul arshil azim. Allah is sufficient for me. There's none worthy of worship but him. I have placed my trust in him. He is the Lord of the majestic throne. And the gratitude list really helps. Like seriously create that list and have it nearby, whether it's on your phone or in a notebook that you can always refer to. Every single time Allah hooks you up, write it down. Even if it's tiny. Even if you like stubbed your toe and it stopped hurting after a minute. That's awesome. That's Allah taking care of you. You know? Write that down and refer to it when you slide into scarcity. And always remind yourself that you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay, always. Allah's got you. 1000%. And then longer term is like, read the book, right? Read this book, start learning Allah's names, the Qalam podcast, start listening to it. Super helpful. It's free. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts, I believe. It's wherever you get your podcasts, you can find it. So definitely recommend it. The book also is not that expensive. I think it's less than $30. So like definitely. The book is called Reflecting on the Names of Allah by Gina and Yusuf. Okay. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to move forward really quickly. I am going to ask, like, as you reflect, please share your takeaways with me on Instagram. I love hearing from you guys. I love hearing how this program impacted you and how you've applied it in your life. Like, it brings me a lot of joy to do this work, and I love hearing from you. So please share your takeaways with me if you have any, as you move through your days, your weeks, your months. I'm just going to take a minute to invite you all to some upcoming offers and announcements happening in my world in case you want to get more involved. So you might be familiar with my Confident Investor program. This is the signature program that I teach Muslim women how to invest from scratch and make money in their sleep. The biggest question I get from people is, how do I invest in a halal way? And I literally created this program to answer that question because I have realized there is no program on the market that actually addresses this question. There's a lot of programs that talk about how to invest in mainstream Western non-halal ways, but there isn't one that talks about halal ways. And so I wanted to create one for you guys. This is my most popular program. I love the women who enroll in it. It is a 10-week program. Enrollment is open for the January round, and the pre-sale price is $888 USD. I am running a Black Friday sale on it. So the first 5 people to pay for the program in full will receive a free 30-minute coaching session with me, which is a really great supplement to the program because the program does not have any one-to-one interaction in it. So this is like a personalized Q&A essentially. This sale ends on Black Friday or when spots fill up, whichever comes first. So there are 4 spots left. So if you are interested in grabbing a spot, DM me, inshallah. I also want to talk about the total money management program. The name of this will change when I announced when we go to early bird pricing, but this is a new program that I'm running. This is actually your foundational program to getting your finances together. This is literally basics, right? We're going to the basics. This is budgeting, organizing your money, increasing your credit score, paying off debt. We talked about, money management in this program. If you know you need help with money management is part of embracing abundance. I would highly recommend you join this program. It is a live program. We're going to start November 28th, I believe. You're going to have replay access for life. The pre-sale is $197 and it's going to go up to $297 early bird. This is a very, very quick pre-sale though. So you have until Saturday, November 12th at 9 p.m. PST. So there's less than 48 hours to get on this pre-sale. If you are interested, head to my stories. And I will also be sending a link with the replay, inshallah, if you want to purchase this. But this is the lowest price this program's ever going to be. Like, this price is ridiculous. Like, I would definitely jump on it if I were you. This is like your foundational program to learn your basics, inshallah. So if you know you need this to embrace abundance, I would highly recommend it. And then the other thing I'm going to encourage you to think about is private coaching if you are ready to take it there. Private coaching is for a few select women. I don't take on that many clients at once, but it is essentially, we do bi-weekly calls and daily messaging. It is a 3-month commitment. It is $3,000 USD pay in full. And we work on a lot of different, things that we need to work on. So I just wanted to share this testimonial from my recent private client. This is all the things we were able to work on during private coaching. We clarified her budget. We looked at her financial goals. We figured out how much of her investments were halal and how much was not, how much she needed to give away. We figured out how much she needs to invest for her children's university tuitions. We figured out how much she needs to invest for retirement. We talked about her. This is the client I was telling you guys about, right? She was able to buy, we worked through her scarcity mindset when it came to buying a luxury vehicle and marriage coaching. We talked about mortgages, like we talked about everything. So it is an investment, and I would definitely recommend you consider it. If you want to get on a payment plan, we can get on a 3-month payment plan if that's helpful for you, but we would start coaching after you finish off your payments. So I don't have a lot of spots for private coaching, but if you're serious about getting your money management together, I would highly encourage you to get in touch with me. Okay, a couple questions. Confident investor, it is self-taught over 10 weeks, but you do have replay access to it for life. But there will be Slack support over the 10 weeks where you can ask questions, and there will also be 3 live calls where we do a Q&A. So you'll have access to live Q&As. You live in France, currently a student. I would recommend the Total Money Management Program for you if you're a student. It's super helpful for you to learn how to manage your money if you're a student. And this program is really applicable to anyone who lives in any country. So I would definitely recommend that for you. Does anyone have any last minute questions? Because we are at time. I will be sending you guys the replay. Oh my God, it's so dark. Wow. I'll send you guys the replay, inshallah. Let me start